Good afternoon. Your Excellency, the Ambassador of Uzbekistan, my dear friend, Sardor. It's great to have you here again.
Thank you.
And to receive you here. And also distinguished members of your delegation, distinguished representatives of the Portuguese Chambers of Commerce and Industry and Business Associations here and those that are online with us, the business people of the invited companies that are both here, thank you for attending this session, and those that are online and that are following this through YouTube. I'm actually very, very happy to be here today, and I'll tell you why. Because I think this is a step in our relationship, and this is a small corollary of the work that we started doing about a year ago, Sardar, I think. Or probably a year and a half ago.
Year and a half.
When you told us, well, that you would be more than willing to receive us in your lovely country and to give an overview on what's going on in Uzbekistan. And so we accepted that. We obviously visited Tashkent, Bukhara, and had a very, very intense program with you, and very, very fruitful, with several members of government, several institutions, several companies, and several associations. And that gave us a notion on what's going on in this area of the world, more generally, but specifically what's going on in Uzbekistan. And the key output, as I told you at that moment, was AICEP has a limited knowledge on your region of the world. And so we needed to understand better what's going on, what are your objectives, how can we trade up, and how can we do more business together. And so here publicly, let me thank you for the great visit we had with you.
Thank you.
It was extremely fruitful. I learned a lot. I was also able to visit a bit your country, so that was also fantastic. It's beautiful, so I also recommend that. If you haven't done it, it makes you relive what the Silk Road many, many centuries ago might have seemed like. And the idea that you have is that basically, if you made it until Uzbekistan, whether you would come from east or west, you had already made, I'd say, most of it. So this was one of the corollaries for me, at least, that I'll always remember. So this initiative is included in a broader initiative that we are obviously doing, which is basically, our thesis is very, very simple. Portuguese people don't do business if they don't know the people from other countries. And here, if they don't know Uzbeks. And so the first step that we need is to basically provide some information and basic contacts on a specific country. And to do that first step, we actually do a first visit, a first institutional visit, where we evaluate what are the opportunities, what are the complementarities, what are the technological challenges on both sides. And this is exactly what we then publish in this outlook that Luís Rebelo de Sousa will be introducing and presenting after me. And I really think that with this first piece of information, and we'll be sharing this with hundreds of companies here in Portugal, they will have a first grasp on what is Uzbekistan and where are the opportunities and what are the institutions that I should contact. Obviously, the first contact that you have, and you'll always have, is AICEP, and from there on, we'll share any relevant contacts or any further contacts that you might need. And so I'm very happy because this also is the first outlook that we're publishing from this series of visits that we did. And this shows the priority that we are giving to Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan is a country, obviously, with a population sort of 3 times our population. But it is a country that has opportunities, in my opinion, that are in line with the sizes and the challenges that the Portuguese companies can answer competitively. And on top of that, we also felt that there was a stable and pro-business environment that is also an advantage in the region that Portuguese companies can take advantage of. So, without further ado, And without taking any more time, I would like to thank first and again our ambassador. Sardar, once again, thank you very much for all the work and everything that we've shared in these past few months. An enormous thank you to the team that developed this first outlook, that established and wrote this up. An enormous thank you to the teams involved in all the other ancillary work. And obviously, an enormous thank you to Luís Bode Souza, who's here, who coordinated this. He also made it to the visit and who will be sharing the perspectives of this outlook and obviously his views on your market. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. His Excellency, the Ambassador of Uzbekistan, and also my friend, Mr. Sardar Rustambayev, distinguished members of the Uzbekistan delegation, distinguished representatives of the Portuguese Chambers of Commerce and Industry and businesses associations that are here or watching us via our YouTube transmission, dear businessmen and dear ladies and gentlemen. As already explained by the President of AICEP, the Uzbekistan outlook presented here today follows ample work and cooperation between Portugal and Uzbekistan, and is an important step for the preparation of a trade mission of Portuguese companies to Uzbekistan. The outlook presents the readers with the reference key economic, social, and performance indicators, which, for the benefit of efficiency of this presentation, I will not dive into. More importantly, I will dive into why we at the Portuguese Trade and Investment Agency believe this is the right time for Portuguese businesses to learn more about the potential of the Uzbekistan market, its opportunities and complementarities with the Portuguese industry and businesses, and create the opportunity to intensify their relations with the commerce and trade institutions and businesses of Uzbekistan. The Republic of Uzbekistan is the largest population hub and the geographical epicenter of Central Asia, a region of great geostrategic significance. It is a country rich in natural resources, namely cotton, gold, copper, molybdenum, silver, and uranium, with important oil and natural gas reserves. Over the past decade, the country has been showcasing changes in its political model organization, introducing broad economic, social, and judicial reforms to increase its international attractiveness and to promote partnerships beyond the region. The transition to a market economy and the introduction of ambitious reforms aim to transform and develop the economy. A clear, ambitious diversification strategy is significantly contributing to this objective. As a result, the country has moved from low income to lower middle income status over the past years, according to the World Bank. Uzbekistan is one of the few economies in Europe, Central Europe, and in Europe and Central Asia region that maintained a positive economic growth in 2020, despite the pandemic. The reforms implemented in the early transition phase to a market economy contributed to a 7.4% growth in 2021. GDP growth rate is expected to be 4% in 2022 and 4.5% in 2023, despite the war between Russia and Ukraine. This growth is mainly driven by investment, private consumption, and natural gas exports and gold exports. The country's main exports, other than gold, cotton, copper, as we referred, and natural gas, are also oil and fruit. On the other hand, its imports are mainly machinery, mechanical, and other appliances, moto, and other vehicles, and iron and steel and materials and pharmaceutical products. The Uzbek economy has an attractive business environment with ample incentives for foreign companies, including small and medium-sized enterprises, and the private sector is perceived as an unavoidable partner in national development strategies, with clearly defined stimuli and a robust PPP framework. Uzbekistan represents an attractive market as destination for Portuguese exports of goods, services, investments, and as a source of imports, commodities. In the context of reconfiguration of global value chains, Uzbekistan may also be a potential market for outsourcing production. I will now dive further deep into the sectors we have identified as the ones that represent the most interesting opportunities for the Portuguese businesses. Namely, agriculture and agri-food. The agricultural sector is already an essential driver of the Uzbek economy, representing 28% of its GDP and giving jobs to 27% of the workforce. Exports of agricultural products contributed approximately for 8.8% to Uzbekistan's external revenues in 2020. Half of the country's population, 49%, resides in rural areas. In the face of a growing population, agricultural development and diversification are critical to a food security strategy. The country is searching partnerships in the areas of production, processing, distribution, consumption, and disposal of food products. The government aims as well to increase agricultural productivity and the adoption of new technologies to develop processing and packaging capabilities to add value to domestic and export products. To improve the country's food security, the government of Uzbekistan is boosting wheat production and supporting agriculture and livestock farming. The country's food processing industry has great potential given the current shortcomings of the subsector. Only 15% of the 20 million tons of fruits and vegetables that are grown yearly are processed for longer shelf life, while 30% are lost due to insufficient storage and processing capability. Only 16% of meat and milk are processed. Uzbekistan's 1,500 refrigerated warehouses can accommodate only 4.5% of the harvest, and the government plans to triple the capacity of the cold storage chain by 2025. The current development plan foresees an increase of 3.4 million tons of processing capacity by 2030, accommodating 30% of the harvest. Cotton and cereals are the main crops of the country. However, eliminating quotas and the price control will facilitate a shift to cultivating fruits and vegetables of high added value. In addition, the profitability of fresh fruits and vegetables production has increased recently, and local farmers intend to develop export markets for these products. Uzbekistan, as we remember, was the Soviet Union's agricultural hub. The country is the the largest exporter of cotton globally and the 6th largest global producer. However, unsustainable farming practices have degraded the land and depleted water availability. The most significant business opportunities lie in processing fruits, vegetables, meat and milk, juices, and the need to create low-temperature storage units and logistics centers. The major packaging material demand is cardboard, paper, and aluminum foil. Small businesses have a great need for small-scale equipment. These are areas where the government encourages the development of the private sector. Another sector is the textile, leather, and footwear. The country is the 6th largest global cotton producer and the 8th exporter. Uzbekistan is one of the world's largest producers of natural textile fibers, cotton yarns, and knitwear. However, there is a low level of raw material processing, and the exports of textile products in Uzbekistan is still lagging. The textile and clothing industry, including knitwear, is today a strategic sector for the economy of Uzbekistan, providing a high level of employment and contributing to the country's economic and industrial potential. Value-added products have replaced raw materials as Uzbekistan's major textile exports. Portuguese companies, with their know-how, will have concrete possibilities in the Uzbek textile sector. There are investment opportunities in producing specific products, production of shirts, wool fabrics, dyed and finished products, ready-to-wear clothing, production of denim products, pneumatic yarn, denim production, production of terry products, carded yarns, terry fabrics, dyed and finished products. On the other hand, there are needs for weaving equipment, spinning equipment, knitting equipment, sewing equipment, and laboratory equipment. Also, there is the possibility of outsourcing Portuguese textile production to Uzbekistan and re-exporting it, with various incentives and tax benefits for this purpose. A program for the development of the textile, clothing, and knitwear industry has been implemented to strongly increase the production of cotton threads, finished fabrics, silk fabrics, non-woven materials, and knitwear. The government intends to continue to develop the sector, improve the value-added chain, and process more of its raw cotton into intermediate or consumer goods for export. Light industry is gradually developing. The introduction of new production technologies as the use of modern high-performance equipment combined with efficient management aim to ensure high labor productivity and an increase in industrial production. The Republic, which long ago exported only cotton fiber, today has the possibility of gaining a preeminent position in the world textile market, not only as a supplier of cotton fiber, but also as an exporter of textile products, predominantly finished products. The leather and footwear industry is also very attractive to the Portuguese companies. Low saturation and competitiveness of the national market, around 34.4 million people, and average profitability of existing companies in the order of 15%. This is also an important sector for the diversification of the national economy, with credit lines allocated to finance projects in the leather industry. Their funds are used to financially support specialist organizations throughout the entire production cycle, from semi-finished leather to finished products. Tourism is a very important sector with enormous potential. Uzbekistan has been closed to foreigners for decades, but reforms have been introduced to open access to its historical and cultural heritage to facilitate tourism development. Uzbekistan is now investing in its tourism and travel industry, given the country's rich historical heritage and natural beauty. In 2018, the number of foreign visitors amounted to 3.4 million people against just 1.5 million people for the same period in 2017. It is predicted that the number of foreign citizens visiting Uzbekistan will amount to 4.8 million people. Uzbekistan entered the ranking of the best places to travel in Asia according to several publications. It is considered a very safe country to travel and is among the top 5 countries in the Commonwealth of Independent States in the ranking of popular countries on gastronomic tourism. The development plan calls for the government subsidized construction of 3- and 4-star hotels with at least 50 rooms, increasing the total number of rooms from 20,000 in 2018 to around 64,000 in 2025, planned. The focus on tourism is diverse: religious tourism, mountain tourism, gastronomic tourism, cultural, educational, ecological, geotourism, and also business tourism. This plan will require significant investments in infrastructure and training, in addition to attracting global hotel chains. Portuguese companies can find opportunities in this hotel industry sector. International brands and chains are already present in the capital, Tashkent. Still, there is demand for hotels in cities such as Samarkand, Bukhara, and Khiva, the central cities of the ancient Silk Road and main tourist destinations. I had the privilege of visiting Bukhara and experienced the exotic flavor of its gastronomy and the exquisite view of its historical architecture. And I can easily see how this city will be an unavoidable destination for the demanding cultural traveler And I know for a fact that Samarkand is just as interesting. Both cities are connected to the country's capital, Tashkent, by high-speed train, and both are of extreme religious significance for the Islamic world. Therefore, with the open tourism policy of the Republic, a rapid growth in this particular segment of tourism is expected. Portuguese hotel and leisure chains like Pestana Group are renowned internationally for their success in rehabilitating traditional infrastructure and monuments for tourism. The government also wants to attract foreign investment and management services for the airports. Uzbekistan's expansion plans for its short and medium-haul aircraft fleet should create business opportunities for manufacturers, parts, equipment, and engineering services. A crucial sector for Uzbekistan is education. Uzbekistan has a high population growth rate, and 40% of the population is under 25 years old. However, it lacks workers with the advanced technical knowledge needed to reform and modernize the country's economy and infrastructure fully. Given the emphasis that current reforms place on valuing human capital, the education sector presents various opportunities. It intends to attract international universities by offering tax exemptions and pre-existing facilities at no cost. Uzbekistan is currently the Central Asian country that invests the most resources in the education system. Uzbekistan ranks poorly in the number of universities per 1 million people among post-Soviet states and neighboring countries. Therefore, the government has an ambitious plan for the sector. One of the goals is for 50% of high school students to complete university courses by 2030. Disciplines destined for expansion include chemistry and energy, mechanical engineering, industrial technology, biotechnology, printing, construction and architecture, irrigation and water resources, medicine and pharmacology, which leads to the healthcare and pharmaceutical sectors. Government healthcare spending reached 3.6% of Uzbekistan's GDP in 2020. Private healthcare providers hold a small share of the market. However, there is a rising demand for quality services and a rising demand for private healthcare services. The Uzbek pharmaceutical sector is one of the largest and fast-growing markets in the region. It was worth around $1.3 billion in 2020, making Uzbekistan the third largest pharmaceutical market in the Central Asian area. And the fastest growing in terms of growth dynamics, between 8 to 10% growth per year. Portuguese companies will find opportunities both in the healthcare sector and in pharmaceuticals. The government is striving for pharmaceutical import substitution, stressing the importance of partnering with foreign investors for international expertise. In 2020, the domestic market in the pharmaceutical sector reached to $1.4 billion, of which between 17 and 20% was provided by domestic production. The country heavily relies on imported medicines. It has in motion a plan for the implementation of good manufacturing and good vigilance practices to increase the quality of pharmaceutical products. Between 2017 and 2021, 44 documents were adopted to reform the pharmaceutical sector, among which is the development concept of the pharmaceutical industry for 2020 till 2024. Also very important is the information and communication technology sector, which has overgrown over the past years, with computer programming and IT services exhibiting the highest growth rate. The mobile and internet user base is growing along with the government support for IT parks. An ambitious government program aimed at developing a national information communication system and upgrading communications infrastructure to the 5G standard creates an increasing demand for IT solutions in the economy's public and private sectors. The government adopted its Digital Uzbekistan 2030 strategy in 2020 to intensify these objectives. This will have a wide range of long-term impacts related to introducing digital technologies across different areas of the economy and society. Portugal is in the leading group of countries that have implemented successfully an ambitious digitalization program of its public administration and public services, with an enormous effort of dematerialization and simplification. This experience can be of tremendous use and benefit for Uzbekistan, since many technological developments were achieved by Portuguese companies that participated in this achievement. Last but not least, the renewables energy sector. Uzbekistan has extensive reserves of energy resources and is heavily reliant on fossil fuels for power generation. However, the country now faces a growing demand for electricity and the need to modernize generation, transmission, and distribution lines. The electricity sector suffers from a high degree of physical depreciation. To sustainably respond to this mounting demand, the country embarked on a transition to a cleaner energy mix to include larger shares of renewables, which is included in its strategy for the transition to the green economy. The government has taken steps to attract more investment into the renewables energy sector. New renewable generation facilities, like solar, wind, and hydropower plants, with a total capacity of over 8,400 megawatts, are planned for construction to increase the share of renewables in total electricity generation to 25%. Again, Portugal is one of the leading countries in the world in this sector, having started the decarbonization transition many years ago, therefore boosting very competitive players in this sector, with vast experience in systems architecture, management, and infrastructure in different continents and in extreme conditions, from Europe to North America, South America, Africa, and even Asia. Overcoming market challenges. There have been significant improvements, and the opportunities that the development of the Uzbek economy encloses for foreign partners are straightforward. The government aims to transform and develop the economy. It has been introducing broad economic, social, and judicial reforms to increase its international attractiveness, promote partnerships, envisaging the private sector as a privileged partner. Furthermore, Portugal has a most favored nation status. Notwithstanding, it is essential to acknowledge challenges in entering this market. At the same time, it is also important to note that the government is aware of many of these challenges and barriers and is working to overcome or mitigate them. When considering establishing business relations with this market, companies should critically and prospectively analyze the challenges. A tentative list of challenges companies still face is provided in this outlook. These challenges are comprehensively analyzed and commented on considering recent developments. In this outlook, we listed these main challenges and responses or solutions of regulatory and legal, socio-economic, cultural, and geographic nature. This first approach to understanding Uzbekistan and to make it more approachable for Portuguese companies and businesses was only possible due to the strong collaboration of the Uzbekistan government, particularly the wonderful and committed work of His Excellency the Ambassador, and, if I'm permitted to be more specific, Third Secretary Shavkat Toshev. To both, I sincerely thank you for your support and your commitment. I would also like to recognize the wonderful work of our Operations and Market Research Department, and particularly Professor Andrea Valente. The next step will be to coordinate a trade mission of Portuguese companies to Uzbekistan, and in preparation for this objective, we have already included a list of institutional and sector-specific contacts in the Outlook that you see before you, and that will be available online in our portal. Thank you very much. And now I would like to invite His Excellency the Ambassador to brief words and presentation of Uzbekistan. Thank you very much.
Well, brief at his desire.
At his desire.
Please, you can speak as much as you want.
As much as you want.
it's very difficult to speak after you because you outlined everything. And dear President, dear Luis, dear Luis again, I'm very happy to be here among you, among our friends. It's a distinct pleasure, and the work that you have done, wow, this is fantastic, honestly. And of course, I would like to again thank your operations and market research department, as you mentioned, for this tremendous work. This is very important, not only maybe for you, but even for us. If you don't mind, we will be utilizing this material. And it's done so professionally that sometimes I was thinking maybe we should hire them too.
No. Please don't.
We still have several outlooks to finish.
No, it's true, and sincere desire for us to. Again, I would like to start with thanking both of you and your team and all of our guests today for being present at this important event for us. As you rightly mentioned, Uzbekistan is a new market maybe for Portugal, and regionally, globally, and the country is developing very fast. And all of the areas that you have mentioned, starting from agriculture, textile, tourism, IT sector, you know, they're developing so fast in our country that even after your visit, we already have some updates. Tremendous updates. For instance, well, in the East, we say that crisis is always consists of two words. One of them is problem, another one is opportunity. So now we are facing a global crisis in terms of pandemic, you know, global COVID situation, which is hit us badly, and your country too. And it's been a very difficult times for everybody, especially for the tourism industry. But it gave us a time to brace ourselves and to prepare for something upcoming. And in the tourist industry, you've mentioned that we were lacking the infrastructure, for instance, in big cities like Samarkand and Bukhara. If you go to Samarkand, 1 year ago, there was a big empty space just on the outskirts of the city. There is a big channel, and it was used at some point as for some sporting facilities, for some sport events. But now there is a new city there in the matter of a year and a half. So there was a very big strategy to, you know, most of our cities are included into the World Heritage list of UNESCO. So it's very difficult to build something within. They're ancient cities equal to Rome, like 2,500 years old. So we are not virtually allowed to do something inside. So we decided to do it on the outskirts. If you go to Samarkand, there is a huge facilities, like at least dozens of new hotels, a new airport, a new so-called eternal city for the tourists. It's fantastic. So it means that we are trying to, the challenges, of course, are there, lots of challenges, and we need to overcome them very quickly. Because now in the times of need, in the times of changes, only those who can quickly react to the new environment, only those can survive and then move forward. And you've mentioned the crisis in Ukraine, very unfortunate events, and which we, of course, very sorry about. And but again, even this crisis brought us some opportunities. Of course, Russia is our biggest trading partner, and we suffer a lot in terms of exporting to Russia. But we're quickly searching for some alternative routes, alternative markets everywhere in the world. And there are some statistics. I don't know. We are on record. Should I make them official or not? But I'll give you some idea. During the first weeks of the crisis, there was a very big exodus of IT companies from those countries affected. People in thousands were migrating from those big countries, namely Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia. And we have some statistics that, well, these flows went to different countries. And for us, it was a big surprise that Uzbekistan has received 10 times the biggest competitor, the number of people, 10 times. All the neighboring countries, all the regional countries combined, doesn't even constitute a half of what we have received in terms of people flow. We already have some infrastructure, and I think you visited that during our stay. We had physical infrastructure, but you cannot create an industry overnight. IT sector requires lots of capacity building, lots of training, and we were bringing best experts from the world. Like we have Deputy Minister of IT sector is Korean guy, who worked in a senior position in Samsung. So we are trying to do our bit. But again, during the crisis, all these IT sector startup centers, incubators, were quickly filled with Russian, Belarusian, and Ukrainian residents. And now there is no more physical empty space there. So what I mean is that we are living in a very quickly changing world, and we need to adapt. And we're seriously and thoroughly looking at our Portuguese partners, because, and you witnessed it during your stay in Uzbekistan, that our economies are very complementary. We have textiles, leather industry, tourism, the same IT sector, renewables you mentioned. Since the time you have visited, we already built 2 new renewable solar photovoltaic stations. One with Masdar, another one with Total. Another one is coming with EDF. So you only have to catch those news and just to follow what is happening in the country, which is really dynamic. And our tasks here is not only to share what we have, which you have already done fantastically, but we need to search for the opportunities, new opportunities in the region. We need to search here in Portugal, because we have already companies, big companies, which are eager and willing to invest abroad. So it's a double-way street, you know, and we need to understand where we can merge our efforts to create some strong partnership. And I heavily rely on your support, and I know that we are here among friends, sincere friends, and it's always easy. When I was listening to your presentation, I was, in the back of my head, I was thinking, like, is it a Uzbek minister doing a presentation on Uzbekistan? Because you've done it in such a professional and outstanding way, which is we can only support and rely on your help. And you mentioned education, you've mentioned logistics. Again, with the new crisis with our big northern neighbor, we need to search some alternative routes, because we cannot export sometimes through these countries because of they are war-torn with conflict. So again, what I would call you for, the Portuguese business community, to search opportunities in Uzbekistan. They are there, definitely, and not only in the sector that we've mentioned with you, but ample more. Many more to come, many more to explore, and I think it will be. I'm very happy that it's the first in the series of your outlooks, and I hope that many more to follow with some other countries. But first is the first. So thank you so much for this fantastic job that you have done, and of course we appreciate it sincerely, and we take pride in our friendship and in our constructive cooperation. I would be happy to answer all of your questions, and especially the part with the challenges that you've mentioned. It's very, very important for us, because maybe we know what we are doing right, but sometimes we don't know what we are doing wrong. So for us, some independent third-party view is always important. We need to know where we're lagging behind, where we are deficient or doing something wrong, to understand. And of course, Portuguese economy is advanced economy with some strong sectors, and of course we need to learn. We need to learn from each other. We need to understand maybe your mistakes that you've done in the past, just to avert them in the future. Okay, please share with us, because this is really important. As I said, maybe we know what we are doing right, but sometimes we don't understand what we are doing wrong, and that's the most important sector what we want to stress on. And as you mentioned, we would be happy, I underlined that many times, we would be happy to receive all of the Portuguese delegation in Uzbekistan. We can mobilize very quickly and make sure that every sector is covered. You can bring your people. We always open doors, and whenever we can, our embassy at your disposal. And again, all the ministries, everybody will be mobilized to see, especially now, with the time of challenge in terms of geopolitical crisis, in terms of sanitary crisis. We need to update all the time. We need to search for something new, for some new opportunities. And I can only praise the work that you have done. Again, it's a fantastic job that you have done, and thank you for that. And we are strongly committed to continue this work. Please be sure about that. And Uzbekistan always, we are both very similar, as we discussed in Uzbekistan. We are both trading nations with great history in the past. But this history, great history, gives us a big credit, but at the same time a big burden on our shoulders that the current generation needs to do at least the same, in terms of global presence, in terms of global trade. Trade is in our blood, in your blood, in our blood, and we've been also, I've mentioned that our ancestors are already met in India at some point, many centuries ago, and what we need to search now for is for new opportunities, for new prospects on the horizon, and they are definitely there. Thank you so much for the attention, and I would be happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
So, questions? Any questions, online or here in the room? I hope they're good. And if you want to share bad decisions that we took in the past, well, then do that in writing later on, not here. No, I'm joking. Online.
So we will move to the online questions that have been presented. One question was, what is the most recommended connection for exporting goods to Uzbekistan? So what's the route from here, Europe, to Uzbekistan? What is the best or the most recommended route, considering the? I believe that it must be considering the current situation.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Sure. Oh, sorry. Sure. Please.
Just for them to hear.
No.
Yes, this is very challenging time for us, and I've mentioned that we have several routes now entering Uzbekistan, and unfortunately, our country is a double landlocked country. There are only two in the world. The other one is Liechtenstein. So in order to get to Uzbekistan, you need to cross in any direction two countries. In order to get to the sea, sorry. So it's a tremendous challenge, but at the same time, now, as you see, there is a very strong initiative from our Chinese partners, the so-called One Belt, One Road initiative. And we've been a part of this initiative from the very beginning. Overland routes sometimes are more efficient now and more quick. And in the current environment, maybe with the if you take in mind the challenges in terms of energy consumption, in terms of logistics, sometimes it's much more easier to deliver goods from Europe to China overland, and from China to Europe overland, and of course vice versa. So we rely heavily on these transport routes. Now with the situation in our big northern neighbor, maybe challenging some of the traditional logistical hubs, such as, for instance, the port of Novorossiysk on the Black Sea, under sanctions, and of course it imposes lots of challenges for our exporters and importers. But there are several routes, and one of those routes would be through the Caucasus, namely if there are Black Sea ports of Batumi, for instance, in Georgia, and then from Batumi it can be delivered to Baku on the Caspian shore, then to Turkmenistan, and then to Uzbekistan. So with all of these countries we have very good political, economic relations, so there is existing railroad, and that would be one of the easiest ways. The other important direction would be through war-torn Afghanistan. Uzbekistan has come up with an initiative to build first ever a railroad in that country. We already completed 2 phases, and it was done with the help of international organizations. And Afghanistan, obviously everybody understands there is no military solution in that country. The only way to pacify this country and to help them to prosper is through involving them into the regional cooperation processes, and one of them would be, of course, trade. Naturally, Afghanistan was a prosperous nation, trading with many countries in the world, but then due to some political reasons, the country experienced almost 40 years of conflict. And now we came up, our president came up with the initiative together with our Afghan and Pakistani partners to have a trans-Afghan railroad. Of course, another direction is through Iran, and as you understand, it's not easy for us. Lots of challenging environments that we need to work in. But again, it's a big market. Not only the country itself is 35 million, but if you look at the wider region, we have Kazakhstan. Only Central Asia is almost 50 plus million, and if you look at Russia and all the neighboring countries, you can count almost a couple of billion people that can be reached easily from Uzbekistan. Now maybe I will open some small secrets. Some of the companies which leaving Russia and some other regions, they seriously considering Uzbekistan as a good platform. I've already mentioned IT specialists and startups who flooded the country. If you go to Tashkent, it's like Moscow now. It's everywhere we have Russian-speaking specialists, and it's very good in terms of raising this industry in Uzbekistan. And then, of course, Russian IT specialists are considered to be very strong, very professional, and for us, it's a big opportunity to welcome them, to help them prosper, and of course, at the same time, grow our own industry. So there are definitely marshroutes to reach Uzbekistan logistically, and we are in the very center of Central Asia. So any airline routes would have to cross Uzbekistan in one way or another. So we have several hubs, transport hubs in Uzbekistan, like the airport of Navoiy. It's in the very center of the country, and it's heavily utilized by Korean Air, for instance. They deliver all their cargo through Uzbekistan. They offload there, and then the rest goes to Europe. So logistically, it's maybe challenging, but it's doable, and we would be happy to help you with elaborating some particular routes. We have a colleague here who is responsible for export of export issues of our country, and he will help specifically to elaborate the routes. We would be happy to do.
Thank you very much. There's just one other country, a question, but which can be divided in two, if I understand correctly. What would be the preferred timing for this trade mission? When would you recommend it to happen? And when is the best time for visiting Uzbekistan? So I think it may be two different questions.
They can relate, and of course, I mentioned that we have very strong tourism industry with some of our world treasures and marvels of Samarkand, Bukhara, Hiva, and many more undiscovered places. We have beautiful natural resorts. We have deserts. We have mountains and rivers, lakes. So there is a lot to see in Uzbekistan, and unfortunately, with this quick change of climate, the climate is getting harsh and harsh as anywhere in the world, and maybe the best time would be for tourists. It would be spring up until May, June, maybe even up till the mid of June, and then starting from September, it's also quite comfortable. The weather is same like here, but the months of mid-June to mid-July is a bit hot. But again, I think Portuguese people are not afraid of hot weather. So we can welcome any time. For the trade mission, we can do it as soon as possible. Okay. If we can mobilize even coming months, like I would suggest maybe October. Okay. October would be a best time in terms of weather, in terms of availability, because September is very busy. This year is very busy in terms of big international events. October, November is a good time to visit the country, and then we can do it year throughout the year. And
thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. Well, thank you very much. Oh, well, please, we have a question in the room.
My name is AICEP from Uzbekistan. I learned in Tashkent.
Very good.
For those that are online.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I work for building materials, and
Mm-hmm.
I would like to know what is your best way to get to the market, building market in Uzbekistan? As you told, there are a lot of construction, hotels, how we can get what is the best ways?
Okay. We are in a very high demand for construction materials, quality construction materials. At the same time, we have several cement plants are under construction in Uzbekistan. We have big foreign investors like Knauf, for instance, which produces gypsum, produces panels, but still not enough. So there is a very, very big opportunity for the Portuguese companies. And Portugal, Spain, Italy, France is very well known for the very strong construction industry. And the most important is that there is a very strong reputation. We know that tiles coming from your region, from Portugal or from Spain, there will be a very, very high demand in Uzbekistan. But we are trying to develop our own local, from the grassroots, local industry. For instance, we have several mountains of fantastic marble. Never we would utilize them before, but now with the help of Italian partners, we not only produce for the local market, but sell it everywhere in the world, even to Italy, back to Italy. So this sector is definitely one of the most promising, given that, well, if you were born in Tashkent, and I don't know, when is the last time you've been there? Last year. So you've seen the Tashkent city project. It's fantastic, new skyscrapers, like the tallest building in Central Asia, and well, we are doing our bit, and the same now is happening in Samarkand, and every region of Uzbekistan has turned itself into a big construction site. So definitely there is a room for opportunities for any construction company, and again, we would be happy, please address us, we would be happy to put you in the contact with associations, with the ministry, with maybe some even companies who would be willing to make something in partnership, because lots of Uzbek entrepreneurs, they have a desire, they have maybe finances available, they have a willingness, they know the market, but they sometimes lack savoir-faire, they lack know-how. So what we need is the technology and know-how, maybe equipment, and many of the European banks eagerly support the export financing to Uzbekistan. We have lots of, for instance, French companies, German companies, bringing state-of-the-art equipment to our country and establishing local production. So I would only urge you to explore more, and we can put you in touch with the Association of Construction Materials, and it's definitely one of the sectors which will be booming the next coming years.
Thank you. Any more questions in the room? Please.
Thinking about the most common diseases at Uzbekistan, what are the medicines you need? Do you need?
Unfortunately, I'm not an expert on the diseases, but generally speaking, yes, unfortunately, it's a safe country. We don't have any big pandemics or epidemics. It's like any European country, because we had a strong Soviet school of medicine, and we are still trying to keep it. We have state-of-the-art hospitals, facilities. But pharmaceutical industry is very promising. We have now lots of joint ventures with Russian companies, Belarusian. Most of the Western big companies like GlaxoSmithKline or
If I may,
yeah, please.
I think you're from a pharmaceutical company, right? Okay, so they're traders, yeah.
Yes.
I think what she might need is your Ministry of Health must have a list of the main ingredients or main products that they are looking for.
Okay.
We have that, so here in Portugal. So, and I think that's
Okay.
what
We can supply.
because they then trade, either they produce or trade.
Yes.
Okay. And also,
Sorry.
No, no,
because
please,
I
please. Sure.
and also I'm it's about the export. Do you export to Europe?
Yes, we do.
The pharmaceutical products.
Not so much pharmaceuticals. We export regionally. We are one of the regional hubs for pharmaceutical activity. And again, we have several big international companies, multinational companies producing some drugs and facilities in Uzbekistan. We urge more and more, and there are lots of preferences, incentives for the production of drugs and pharmaceuticals in Uzbekistan. So, for instance, of course, you may start with exporting something to our country, and then maybe thinking of producing something locally. So, the government fully supports that. We have a special state body who oversees this kind of activity, and we can supply the list of drugs and medicines which are maybe in more demand. That would be, of course, anything related to oncology, some sophisticated drugs, anything related to the diabetes, because it's also one of the biggest killers in the region. Maybe some items which, some electronics which controls your sugar or blood. So I know that anything which is not produced in Uzbekistan is of high demand. So we already been in contact with some Portuguese companies here locally, and 2 companies already have a presence in Uzbekistan. They're doing fantastic. I know that they're making a lot of money, but there is always a scope for any newcomers.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have two more
Please.
questions. Yes, another question? Oh, we have 2 more questions from our online viewers. From the same entrepreneur, Tatiana Andreeva, that asks, we would like to present Portuguese products for retail business in Uzbekistan, like canned fish, olive oil, etc. How can we supply and find contact of the importers, distributors in your wonderful country?
We will provide the list.
Okay.
We'll provide. It's very straightforward. We'll provide.
And the second is, how can we get support for the veterinary authorization for the Portuguese producers?
As we were discussing, we were supposed to have a minister with us today,
Exactly.
especially the minister for veterinary, industry, and with a big team of. But COVID is such a thing that it doesn't choose whether it's a minister or not. So unfortunately, he couldn't come. But we have a close contact with them, and we can put them in touch with the Portuguese companies to ensure that they can easily import into our country.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. And I declare the end of this session. And everyone is invited for a coffee and water and a little coffee break here in the room next door. Thank you very much.